Well, the government's mouthpiece, the BBC, appears to be copying Labour. Let's begin. Now, of course, I don't know about you, but ever since Labour have come in, it seems like they've been on a one-man mission to pee off the entire country, and now it looks like the BBC are doing the same thing. And I say that because, according to this article, it says BBC uproars more than 100 jobs cut following a pledge to spend £80 million on, wait for it, a diversity drive. Yes, right, the BBC is going to shove more woke stuff down our faces, it seems. And apparently the BBC plans to cut 500 jobs in total by March 2026 in a bid to save money despite splashing out a whopping £1 million on this 2024 woke brigade culture, it seems. Which, if you think about it, is absolutely ridiculous. How often do we hear from the BBC that, oh, we need to cut stuff because there's not many people paying the TV licence? And then they go do something stupid like this. So in which case it seems that any cuts they need to make are actually questionable, surely. If anything, I think they should be cutting overpaid celebrities, in my opinion, like Gary Lineker's £1.3 million, down to something more reasonable. Say, well, for Gary Lineker, probably about a fiver, and a packet of crisps for his good old days, eh, Gary? But anyway, the BBC announced it is making further cuts to its workforce with more than 100 jobs to be axed. The National Union of Journalists, the NJJ, hit out at the move, saying that the cuts were putting the BBC in a perilous state after hundreds of jobs were also lost across BBC Local earlier on this year. And the latest round of job cuts equate to 3% of the BBC's workforce. So it just goes to show how many people that work in the BBC that might not be necessary, because surely if they think, well, hang on a minute, we don't need these people in the first place, then that money, that our TV licence money, or the public's TV licence money rather, because I don't pay the TV licence, could have gone towards making TV programmes better rather than paying for a load of jobs that they don't need, especially, of course, this £80 million woke drive that seems to now be happening, doesn't it? But just what have the BBC said about this? Well, a BBC spokesperson said, never like to give their name, do they? Oh, really? Well, you also don't give your name. Oh, I hate the smug one. Good point, but I don't actually work for a publicly owned organisation, do I, eh? But anyway, the BBC spokesperson said, we have been clear that the significant funding pressures that we face means that every division of the BBC needs to make savings. And in July, we said that we expect to see an overall reduction to about 500 BBC public service roles by March 2026. How about, instead of putting £80 million into a diversity drive, you actually reduce the TV licence fee by that amount? I mean, surely, if anything, that would be a little bit better for all the public. In fact, actually, scrap the TV licence entirely and just go the adverts or subscription route. That way it would be companies paying for ads, or actually people who actually really want to watch the BBC. So I'm guessing with subscription, they might get about, I don't know, 3 people. They more than likely work at the BBC themselves, eh? But anyway, BBC Nations announced today that it expects to close up to 115 positions in editorial and production teams by next year as part of these plans. A number of further redundancies are anticipated in the division's operations department, but these will be shared directly with the teams affected first. And get this, while challenging, it says, we aim to make these savings as far as possible through voluntary redundancy, and we confirm that we expect to deliver these changes without closing any major services. In addition, there will be no programme changes or savings impacting on BBC local radio output. So while they're decreasing workers in one force, their diversity drive will be increasing production teams from 20% to, wait for this, 25%, which 5% might not seem like a lot. However, if presumably 500 jobs is 3% of the BBC, then that could actually be quite a bit more, couldn't it, eh? But of course, don't worry, because Charlotte Moore, the BBC's Chief Content Officer, said, we are committed to bringing back British storytelling, more than likely with warnings, and I recognise the important role diverse-led indies play in telling these authentic stories. Well, calm down. To be honest, I don't think they play as an important role as what you seem to think they do, because whilst I could be wrong, I'm guessing quite a lot of the public, me included, are getting fed up with basically woke stuff being shoved down our faces more and more often, it seems, eh? And here we go, the real reason behind this change. It says, by increasing our investment in diverse content and enhancing our off-screen diversity targets, we aim to create a more inclusive environment that authentically represents and resonates with all audiences. Hang on a minute, that's off-screen, so surely audiences won't know about it, will they? Unless, of course, you expect us to Google all of the names in the end credits, eh? But what these people don't seem to be realising is, if you're recruiting people from one particular race whilst excluding all the other races, if that indeed is the case, then isn't that in itself racist? I mean, yeah, I could be wrong, but surely there are anti-discrimination laws which kind of prevent them from doing that, eh? So what things are we all going to be in store for then? Well, apparently the Sir Lenny Henry Centre for Media Diversity recently reviewed the BBC and the number of recommendations to the corporation over its diversity offerings, which, hang on a minute, it would just make me wonder, does Sir Lenny Henry actually know this is happening in his name? Because that's how it seems, if that indeed is the company who's doing it. But anyway, these include, wait for it, publishing annual intersectional analysis, urgent, apparently, large-scale intervention to create transformative inclusion, and the abolition of catch-all terms and vocabulary for ethnicity. But I guess we'll all just have to see how this pans out. I personally think that the BBC will be copying Labour more and more and more with every decision they make to pee off the rest of the country, and the BBC will no doubtly be doing the same. Because let's face it, you know, it does seem quite hypocritical to me to say you need to make loads of savings whilst at the same time splashing out 80 odd million pounds on something which is only going to benefit, I'm guessing, 2% of the country.